in today's time, the advantage of social media is to, we can access a huge audience, but also it feels too overwhelming, and sometimes it takes you away from the work that you want.
It really comes down to belief. And I think the best way to overcome that belief is to surround yourself with success. It's the overcomers and the ones who overcome in the face of these obstacles and these difficulties that carry tremendous strength, power, and authority.
I think being in a community of people that really do have that belief, it changes your whole mindset, and any artist can believe, like, they can do it if they're with other people that also believe that. It's like this really beautiful effect that happens.
The more people you make happy, you will be happy. You have to put in the time if you want to see your results. It's like a little plant, it grows, and the fruit is just so incredible.
Thank you so much for joining us in another episode of the Arts to Hearts podcast. I thank you for listening to this podcast and want to remind you, if you like what we do, make sure you subscribe. I also want to remind you that our call for art for 100 artworks from emerging artists women's edition is going to be ending soon. We are excited to launch this new edition, this new theme of work, and in collaboration with Milan Art Institute, we will be publishing our first edition. We're calling all women artists, and we are looking for 100 artworks created in 2023 from emerging women artists from all around the world. We've received some incredible entries and some incredible responses, and I'm so excited for the support that we've received from you. I truly believe that this book really has a magic, surrounded with it. I cannot believe the support that we've received, the submissions and the support towards just the idea of uplifting women through this new publication. If you want your work to be published and if you want to share your work for this publication, make sure that you submit. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Now, let's get back into the episode. I'm very excited for today's episode because today we are going to meet one of my favorite persons. She's become one of my favorite persons so far, Elli, and her co-founders, which is aka her family, her daughter Dimitra and her partner John. Elli, Dimitra, and John are founders of Milan Art Institute. We've been collaborating with Milan Art Institute in this month for our upcoming book that I'm very, very excited about, 100 artworks from emerging women artists. Yes, we are doing our first new edition of a book called 100 Artworks from Emerging Artists, and this is a special women's edition, and we hopefully will do a lot more editions in the years to come. But for now, we are extremely excited to collaborate with Milan Art Institute and launch this book. If you're interested in participating, I want to remind you that we only have a few more days left for this call for art to close. So make sure that you're able to submit if you want to participate in this book. And in this episode, I'm excited to share more about Milan Art Institute, the inspiring journey of Elli, her husband, and her daughter. And if you're interested in learning more about Elli, make sure you tune in to the episode. I will link here in the YouTube and in wherever you're listening to this podcast, Spotify, Apple, anywhere. But the point is, I wanted to bring them on the podcast to share their thoughts, how artists hold themselves back, how the program can help you, what specifically the program entails, and why did they really form Milan Art Institute? Because honestly, as artists, building another business, I think, comes out of a real necessity. I knew I started Arts to Hearts, this podcast, because I was so lonely, because I didn't have enough resources. And I thought, okay, I'm going to change this, and I'm going to take things in my hand, and I'm going to create it for myself. And I know Elli has a wonderful story, and I thought, why not bring all of them and talk about the book also and talk about the program. So it's a short tea episode, and I hope that you enjoy. And thank you in advance for joining us. Let's go talk to them. Hey, you guys, welcome back to the Arts to Hearts podcast. Today, I have with me the fantastic team behind the Milan Art Institute. We are very excited. I'm very excited, actually, because I've already had Elli on the podcast, and it was one of our favorite conversations. You guys loved it. I loved it. And we're back with back with another episode. And not only with Ellie this time, but we have the team. We have Ellie, Dimitra, and John, three of them with us on the podcast. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Thanks for having us on.
Thank you.
Absolutely a pleasure. Well, how about we all know about Ellie? So we'll turn around the tables this time. We'll hear from John, and then we'll go to Dimitra, and then we'll come back to Ellie. John, would you like to introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, how are you associated with Milan, and then we'll go forward.
Oh, yes. My name is John Milan. I'm a painter and I'm also an art educator. My wife Ellie and I developed the art school many years ago, and the artists that we're meeting are having such beautiful success. They are just growing, and we just love it so much. We are able to travel and bring super cool information to everyone, and as well as using the internet for everyday events.
Amazing. What about you, Dimitria? How would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Dimitra Milan, and I'm their daughter. And yeah, I grew up in just an artistic family. Both my parents were full-time artists, and I, fell in love with art from a very early age. And around 13 years old, I decided that it was my passion, and I wanted to pursue that for my career. And so I definitely had their encouragement, and I feel like I was really fortunate because a lot of people's, their parents don't support that dream, and so I feel really blessed to have that support. And they, taught me everything I know. So all my skills I learned from Milan Art Institute because they opened the school, around the age when I started painting, and so I grew up in that environment, learned a lot of amazing skills. And then I started my career when I was 15, and I've been a professional artist since, a full time professional artist. And now I'm also an owner at Milan Art Institute, and I'm also an instructor and mentor for other students.
Amazing. Thank you so much, guys. And here we come back to Ellie. Welcome back to the podcast, Ellie. How are you?
I'm great. Yeah, excited to be here.
Same here. Okay, I'm going to take the conversation forward and I want to ask you, how does it feel to have your daughter now? Someone, I'm sure you must have seen her journey from being a little girl to not knowing, and then being an artist, seeing her grow as an artist, and then now being a co-owner. She's running the business with you. She's also an instructor. How does that journey feel like?
It feels amazing. I just am super proud of her. When she was, young and 13, 14, and painting all the time, she would, say no to, some friends that invited her over for sleepovers, or, to go out. And, she spent just tons of time painting. She was very committed, very dedicated, very passionate about it. And I think that's pretty rare for a young person, to, she did, of course, socialize and hang out with friends, but a lot of times she said no, because she had deadlines, especially when she was 15, 16, 17, and she started traveling, and for work and going to art shows, in places like, Cozumel and Hawaii and Las Vegas, and so she made those choices and those sacrifices, and did what a lot of young people don't do, and she did it on her own. It was we weren't pushing her, or, I don't know, we encouraged her, but she really wanted to do it, and she really enjoyed it. And yeah, so she's a very hard worker. It wasn't that it just came to her easy and it fell in her lap, and it was just, uh, something she didn't work hard for. She worked extremely hard, and I think the benefit that she had is she had belief, and that's what a lot of artists, I think, lack, is believing in themselves. And because she saw her parents succeeding and she was around students who were succeeding, she didn't struggle with that belief, but she did the work. And the reason she did the work, I think, is because she really believed it was possible.
Yeah, I love that. Dimitra, what about you? I'm sure while you were looking at Ellie and John, and they have these creative careers, I think I see a lot of two kind of opinions a lot of children have. One is when they look at their parents and they feel like, okay, um, this feels natural to me. It's like a genetic gift that we get. And the other is a lot of people retaliate and they feel like, okay, I did you always have that kind of creative inclination and you felt like, okay, you had to be, or you navigated yourself through those seasons and then you felt like, okay.
Yeah, pretty much that. Like at first, I felt what a lot of kids feel when they see their parents in a certain field. They're like, "Oh, I'm supposed to be this. Like I'm supposed to be an artist, but I want to do my own thing and I want to be different." And I felt that way. But that happened. I don't know. I was like 10, 11, like thinking that. But I didn't really have, I mean, I loved animals. That was like my main thing that I loved. But then when I started painting animals, I guess it just satisfied that. And I couldn't escape that. I really was very creative and I just enjoyed drawing. I enjoyed painting. And I thought like, just I don't know, I battled that for just a little bit, but then I just loved it so much I didn't really care. And I was determined to find my own style and to really be different from them, because at first my artwork was very similar to my parents. I was really influenced by their imagery. Yeah, they painted a lot of horses and like I was painting horses, and I learned all their techniques. So I was trying to find like my way was, I just wanted to be my own artist and have my own style that stood out.
And John, how do you feel about what were your thoughts about having Dimitra being an artist? Often, like, I think when we choose our professions, we see both the sides, like the good and the bad, the hard and the easy. Did you have any thoughts about, having your children coming into the same field?
I always encouraged it every way I could, but it really was their choice if they wanted to do it or not. And we had my son and my youngest daughter. At first, they thought they were going to do another type of career, and then eventually they loved every part of art. They're doing it big time. And so I remember the story of when Ellie and I would do some outdoor shows, but Dimitra and Daphne, my two older daughters, they wanted to go and do a show with me. So we went to this lake where it was like an old fashioned type of place, a lot of older community, but very, very beautiful. And we set up a table, and everyone is just doing regular vendors tables. But Dimitra and Daphne and I were right by the water, and all these people started crowding around, and they were selling every painting they had almost in one day, in one afternoon. While all the other vendors were making one or two sales, they were doing 10 or 12 each, and they had so much money, they were loving it. And I think from that point on, they wanted to have a career where they could show their art, and it was really beautiful work. I was proud of them the whole time. uh, I wouldn't say that I showed them everything they know, or that Ellie showed them everything, because both of the daughters, they grew and put all the years into it.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. But Dimitra, how about while you're while you grew up to creative parents, how do you figure out that this is your voice, or this is your the influence of your surroundings around you?
Yeah, that is a good question. Well, I tried a lot of different styles. I exposed myself to, all the techniques that were taught at the school. Um, I learned oil painting, I learned acrylic, I learned drawing. I really like tried everything. And from that decided, what I really loved and created my own process from that. And that's something now that we teach in the mastery program. But at the time, we didn't even have the mastery program. It was just a portfolio class. And so I just kept trying different styles. And eventually I landed on this painting where it was like this girl and a crow. And I felt like there was just something really special about that painting because there was like a story happening between women and animals. And that was the first time I combined that in one painting. And I just felt it in my heart. Like I felt like this is my own thing. And I'm going to keep going with it. And so from there, that was the start of everything.
I love that. And do you, Ellie, a lot of artists have this question, a lot of artists on the podcast, when we do, um, and I'm sure, Ellie, you would agree, a lot of artists don't grow or are afraid to grow because we have the imposter syndrome, the inner critic, also knowing what is possible, seeing your parents and paving their own paths, having that life. Did ever that question come to your mind, Dimitra? And or you always saw your parents and you felt like that wasn't even like any other artist, like for example, when I grew up, I never knew being an artist could ever be an option because I'd never seen an artist in my life. I always thought it was a hobby, only until I decided, okay, no, it's not a hobby, I could do something about this. But before that, it was always like that. I had to change that narrative for myself because I didn't have an example. But a lot of times people also have that narrative because of several different reasons. Did you ever have that, or because you had of good, great examples that felt that just didn't come to you?
Not really, because I did see my parents have successful careers. So I was around that. That's what I grew up with. And I really loved having them at home. Like we all would paint together and I felt like it was possible. So it never really I never really had those doubts. And then I think my mom's right because I believed, I put in the work and I gained a lot of skill, and after a few years, I had a style. It took a few years, but I had my own style. And then I started selling that. And once I started selling my first few pieces, even though they weren't even priced that high, I was selling them. And that gave me the belief and confidence to even take it further. And so I just kept trying and I kept putting myself out there. And I would do the tent shows, I would do the shows my dad's talking about, like the this community, this older community, they had this like monthly, it's called the Sun Lake Show. And so I would just really try to put myself out there. And the more I sold, the more confident I became. Um, but yeah, in our school, we definitely had artists who would come in and struggle with that. But I think being in a community of people that really do have that belief, it changes your whole mindset. And any artist can believe, like they can do it if they're with other people that also believe that. It's like this really beautiful like effect that happens. In our school.
Yeah, it's also like, you become what you're surrounded by, and when you're surrounded by examples and great convictions, you don't have that thought. Ellie, tell me something. Dimitri is like a your own personal success story for Milan Art Institute, like, from someone who didn't know, and then, along with you, she started painting with both of you, and then, she built a successful career for herself, and then she's now a co-owner with you. It's been like, it's a great, wonderful, inspiring journey. Um, do you think that really gave you a huge perspective, or like, to show the impact that Milan Art Institute has in, artist life, and, from being an amateur artist to now being a co-owner of Milan Art Institute? If it's possible for one, it can be possible for so many.
Yeah, I think it definitely has, because there's a whole bunch of people from our community that were students that were taking these classes with her, and they saw her sort of rise, and they saw her succeeding, and they also witnessed how much work she put in, and they saw her in the studio painting, while classes were going on, and she wasn't in those classes, but she was painting and working on her portfolio. They witnessed in the portfolio classes that we required 4 paintings per week to be completed. And she would show up every single time with 4 completed paintings, and where some of the students, didn't. So they saw her put the hard work into it. And I rarely heard, if ever, people saying, "Oh, yeah, she just got that because she's your daughter," because they saw the work. They saw that she was painting, all the time. And they saw when she wasn't very good. That's the important part. They saw when her paintings were, terrible. And then they saw her struggle, and they were in the class when she, cried because she couldn't get her self-portrait right. And she was upset, and going through the same struggles as them. And so I think that was she has been a tremendous inspiration to people all around her. And but then even more inspiring, or I don't know about more inspiring, but also inspiring, are the people that she inspired who have done it. And the people that didn't look at her and go, "Oh, she just did that because she's their daughter. And so it's easy for her. And, she had the easy pass." There's a lot of students that said, "I saw her do it. I can do it too." And they did. They put in the hard work, and they followed in her footsteps. And they're full-time artists. Many of them have quit their jobs. They're supporting their families. They're earning thousands every single month from the sale of their painting. They're in shows. They're having sellout shows. They're traveling. They're enjoying success. And the common denominator is the work. That is the common denominator. It's not talent or luck, or who do you know. Those things, of course, can help, but they can also be a hindrance.
It's also a great example of, I think progress does not happen overnight, but often, uh, you know, big leaps feel like they're happening overnight, but they're also like little showing up moments of work that we do, and then, you know, they come together. But also, I think having, I think having a great example around you also gives you a conviction that you can do this. It's like your mentors also being your cheerleaders, your parents also being your mentors. That really,
Yeah.
John, tell me, how does it feel having it's you're now like two generations, you and Ellie. I'm sure you have your own experiences with Dimitra coming from a different world. She's from this generation, and you both you've seen the time from traditional way of starting our careers to today digital way. And Dimitri has done an amazing work of even building her digital profile. She's extremely popular. Her work reaches I don't know, hundreds and thousands of people. And I think you all have like this. It feels like a really your grounding of traditional knowledge and finding that curve with Dimitra coming from a very contemporary perspective. How do you think that adds a unique perspective for people, learning from Milan Art and learning from the mastery program?
Very similar. I feel the same as Ellie does, where we watched it happen so gradually, but her persistent efforts were really uh, doing well. So we watched her encouraging others, and she became like my teacher. I mean, I would love to have major success. So we have been in gallery shows together over the years,
Wow.
and that was really fun when she was younger, getting more and more into it. And it's a totally different look. So we're so proud of her. Like every single choice she's making is a very excellent choice in her career, in her work ethic, and then inspiring others at the same time. That's one of the keys to life: is the more people you make happy, you will be happy.
Well, and what you mentioned about the digital, in this new generation, I say this all the time, that I wanted a mentor my whole life, my whole career, and I would contact artists and ask them to mentor me, when I was younger, and trying to find my way. And they either didn't want the competition, or they couldn't be bothered, or they didn't have time, or they would just ignore me. And so I never really had a mentor. And I remember Dimitra, when she got her Instagram account, and she had like, I don't know how many followers did you have, like it was under 1,000, I think. And she paid some guy, like a somebody that promotes artwork, $50 or something like that. And yeah, and he promoted one of her paintings, and he didn't even have that big of a following. I think it was like 100,000 people or something. And overnight, she got about 8,000 followers. And
Wow.
yeah, and she had meanwhile been telling me that, Mom, you got to get on Instagram. And I was like, oh, I'm already on Facebook, Instagram. And so I watched her account go from, nothing to 50,000 in a very short period of time. And I thought, okay, I need to get on Instagram.
Yeah. So she
But
inspired you.
yeah, she inspired me. And so I've watched her self represent, because, John and I did it largely through the traditional methods, gallery representation, dealers, working with publishers, that sort of thing. And Dimitra took a step to self represent after she was in the galleries and things like that, and use social media to her advantage. And I watched her do that. And she's become my mentor in that way. And I watch what she does, and try to emulate it in my own way. And even when we do workshops, I learn from her all the time. So there's something about, yes, this younger generation where things become automatic to them. And Dimitri's husband, Jake, is an incredible marketing genius. We think he's a genius. And so John and I are always like with our phones, like, okay, how do you do that? Show me how you did that. And he's like, oh, okay, give me your phone. And so it's great having these brilliant young minds, around us, and we can learn from them. And I think that's something that older people are figuring out now, that we have a lot to learn from the younger generation, as they have things to learn from us.
And I think as a student, anyone who often, like, when even when I started to look out for, you know, a lot of programs that I felt when I was stepping into the arts, either they were too traditional, um, they were being taught the old school way for people who came before, like, who had the experience. But the times are changing. There are a lot of things that, may be done in a certain way. They were done in a certain, but today maybe there's a faster, smarter way. Versus there were a lot of programs that were very contemporary, and I never found something that was very middle. I think in the sense of that someone who had the knowledge and, the grounding of how things really in an, the whole entire industry works in, but also a perspective of how things are contemporary. I feel like the mix of having you and John, um, coming from a huge, experience and doing things so many on your own with the traditional media, seeing the evolution with, I think, Dimitria and Jake coming with that very contemporary perspective of, taking advantage of social media, content creation, sharing your voice, putting yourself out there. I think it's also a great learning for people who take the program, because they're not only getting one side of that perspective, but also taking both the perspectives, and they can find what really, like, sometimes, as we know, I'm sure Dimitra would agree, in today's time, the advantage of social media is to, we can access a huge audience, but also it feels too overwhelming, and sometimes it takes you away from the work that you want, because it feels, it sometimes it can get distracting. But also, you then learn how you can balance it off with how people did without social media. Also, how can we build our careers not only with one skill, but having like a tool of skills, and knowing everything and using when what is needed.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Okay, Dimitri, can you talk about your own experience? Let's say you've been a student, from a student to now here. How would you explain to someone who's listening and feels like, what is Milan Art Institute? Should I join the mastery program? Is this for me? What I'm going to ask John and Ellie later, but I want to first hear your own story as a student, someone who is listening to this podcast would want your real view and your real experience, how would you share that?
So I think I mean, obviously, it might be a biased opinion, but because it's my family, but I think we have a really special school because I mean, I learned so many techniques from traditional drawing, painting from life, still life, figurative, like all different types of painting and different subject matter, to mixed media, using collage, spray paint, like all the mixed media materials you could think of. I learned through all these classes at Milan Art Institute, and I think that's really unique because not a lot of art schools they don't expose you to all that. And at the same time, I was encouraged to find my own style and my own voice, and I was given the belief that I could do this as a career. And they also, I learned the marketing side of it, and I just think it's really unique. And anyone listening who's wondering, like, if they just want to take their art skills to the next level, um, or they want it for a career and to be a professional artist, I feel like they can find all that through the mastery program. And it's just a life changing program. It will really change your life in every way. So.
Love that. How about you, John and Ellie? How do you think, as someone, you know, in a world where there are so many courses, so many information already flooded on the internet, you can have anything. And I think sometimes a lot of artists are scared because it feels like a huge commitment. It feels like, I don't know, can I commit to this? Sometimes people feel like, oh, I can't afford it, it's an expense. Will it be worth it? A lot of questions people have. What do you think is your answer to them, and why would someone choose the mastery program from Milan Art Institute over the other programs that are out there?
So the first thing I would want to say to anyone that I meet is that you have to put in the time if you want to see your results. You can't just hope that it's going to happen. You have to make a schedule and stay with it, and you're going to see your progress. And it's a very different school, like they were saying, where you're having a plant that's going to grow fast. It's like a little plant; it grows, and the fruit is just so incredible. So the main thing is. It is possible, and everyone is having beautiful um, paintings being created, and they're all amazed. They're able to capture their dream and put it into reality. And where a lot of schools will take years and years and years, and you might get a small fraction of the success. You get it much more interesting this way, and you get to be with a community of artists encouraging each other.
I think also, what you said, a lot of people might be thinking, I don't know if I have the time for this. Man, things are tight right now, that, $200 a month for 12 months would be, a strain in my budget. And if you compare that to other art schools and other opportunities out there, and you weigh it against what you learn, it's the deal of the century. It's almost too good to be true. That's how good it is. And the main thing is, no matter what your obstacle is, if you really, really believe, and you knew, just what if this program could actually make you a full-time artist, where you didn't have to have a second job, you didn't have to have that. And not only was it not a strain on your finances, but it brought in income, and you felt the relief of financial freedom, not just through a job or something you didn't like, but imagine experiencing financial freedom through your passion and what you love. I don't care how much time you have, I don't care what a strain it is, anybody would do it. Anybody would make the sacrifice. Anybody would spend their last dollar to be able to achieve within a year, a relief in their finances and moving towards their dream of becoming a professional artist. So it really comes down to belief. And I think the best way to overcome that belief is to surround yourself with success. So we have a gallery that's called Art Social Gallery. So it's just artsocial.gallery. And you can go there, and everybody in that gallery is a graduate. Now there's a ton of graduates that are as successful as those people, or even more successful, that aren't in that gallery. So that's just a tiny sampling, a very small sampling of some of the success stories. So as people graduate from this program, the ones that are really applying themselves, the ones that take the knowledge and apply it toward building their businesses, are experiencing that success. And we don't know anyone that has done the work, put in the time, built out the portfolio, and actually followed through on the marketing, who isn't successful. It's kind of a no-brainer. So it's a fabulous program. And basically, if you're passionate and you're willing to do the work and persevere through the ups and downs and the discouragements, you there's a student, Ritika, who I've watched go through a lot of obstacles, a lot of difficult things. She's done shows where she hasn't sold anything, and she's done shows where she sold a lot of things, and she's been on the news. And she, would contact me when she had a show where she didn't sell anything, and she'd say, "Oh, I don't know. I kind of want to quit. It's so hard. It's harder than I thought it would be." I'm like, "Ritika, don't quit. Don't quit. Just keep doing it. Keep persevering. There's going to be another show. You're going to sell some art." And sure enough, she does another show. She sells a bunch of art, or somebody contacts her, or she gets these commissions, and it turns around. And eventually it evens out. Eventually, there's enough successes that build, and it doesn't take long. And you even out, and you don't have this, gut wrenching roller coaster of, okay, I did this show and there wasn't success, and then I did this other one and there was. So it's a fabulous program. It equips you for life. It equips you to really own your own business and be able to navigate these sort of initial roller coaster ride that comes with a career. And if it was so easy, if it was so it didn't require perseverance, if it didn't require grit and determination, you wouldn't be able to handle your success. Imagine you succeed quickly overnight. You're an overnight success, and it didn't require work. It didn't require perseverance. You're at the top. Everybody's applauding you. Everybody's saying, "Oh, your art is amazing." You would have the biggest ego. Your head wouldn't fit through the door. You wouldn't be able to handle the success. But because it's those moments I was describing with Ritika, where you want to give up and you want to quit, and you have the humility in your heart to contact your mentor and say, I want to quit. I'm so discouraged. And you still find something inside of you that can persevere. It's those moments that build your character and make you a person of integrity that can handle the success. So I'm glad it's not easy. I'm glad it requires a lot from us. I'm glad. But the beautiful thing is, anybody can do it. It's not luck. It's not that, well, it happens for some, but not for others. It happens for all if you work hard and you push through and you persevere and you do it. It happens for all. It's not a guessing game. And I think that's empowering.
I think each and every word that you said has been extremely empowering and really, like, I feel so encouraged. And I think it's absolutely true. I think if we had it easy, we wouldn't even. I think sometimes those hardships also really help us as creative people because, you know, I think as creatives, our job is to push the envelope. And when we get too comfortable, we no longer feel the need to, push it. And I always I've always seen so many lows in my own career, and we continue to see highs and lows. It's never one way. And I keep asking myself, okay, if it's a low, what am I missing here? What am I missing here? How do I do this better? I'm sure there's something I'm missing. And I feel like we often can blame and say, okay, someone had it easy, but nobody does. It's so much effort and hard work that goes behind the scene. And I think, like you said, the faith I think is just even not knowing how you'll get there, but just knowing that you will figure it out somehow.
Yeah.
One last question I want to ask you is, we're doing this book in collaboration with Milan Art Institute. Three of you are, our curators. What do you think? And we're curating 100 artworks. I'm very excited to see. Uh, we have so much. I can't even tell you. This our call for art has received such an incredible support, and I see the excitement from artists, and also a book dedicated to women. How do you, as three individual, curators and artists, uh, what would you look at work for emerging women artists? What kind of work are you looking forward to? Anyone who's submitting and feels like, a lot of questions that we've gotten are, am I artist enough to submit? Because an emerging artist is a very gray area. My work is good enough. How would you answer them, and what kind of work would you, each of you, look forward to, while curating a book like this?
Okay, I'm jumping for it because it's so beautiful to have the chance to do this, and we really thank you for that. And we love viewing art from everywhere. There's something about the creative flow when you get to view everyone's art, and you kind of have to be a little bit competitive, which is it can sting for some, but we're all in it to see who's the victorious ones, and we get to see the finished book at the end. And so it's not that we would want to discourage anyone else, but not everyone can have the trophy. Like some people say, everybody gets a trophy. Wait, we don't. So as you're looking at all the art and you're balancing out, you have to use some criteria that is very tried and true in the industry, like viewing it with your eyes and your heart. You're feeling that painting, and you're seeing the parameters of where it's a good design, it's nice color balance, it's drawn and painted well, and there's going to be a feeling to it that's almost undescribable. So as you're looking at many of them, they will start to just jump right out at you. If you study paintings long enough, for all these years that we've studied paintings, it's funny, if we don't talk to each other, we're probably going to choose the same ones. If we it happens.
What about you, Phoebe?
Yeah, I'm really excited for this opportunity. I really love what you're doing and having, 100 women artists. I think that's super special and unique. I haven't seen anyone else do that. So I think that's really cool, and I'm excited.
I'm glad that we're doing this together, and I'm more than happy. I think it's wonderful to have Ellie. I think it's a one. I'm very grateful for this collaboration.
Yeah. But as far as like judging the paintings or choosing the artists, it's definitely going to be difficult, I think, because you said there's so many submissions. There's probably like so many amazing artists. It's going to be hard to choose for us. But I think we'll be judging based on the elements of art and, using just composition, color, looking for the right focal point. If does the painting have depth to it? Is there contrast? Like we're just going to be using the elements of art, and of course we want a variety of styles. We're not looking for just one style. It's going to be representing everyone's unique voice, and I think that's what makes the book so amazing, is having all these different artists and backgrounds and different styles.
Yeah. Yeah, and also so many new medias that we're seeing, like beyond painters and sculptors and photographers, medias that have been mainstream. But there's so much new that is happening, and it's so exciting to see new work coming in.
I'm very excited for this. I'm so excited that you are choosing to do it this time. With 100 women, choosing 100 women, and because for so long women have been overlooked in the art world, and I think there's a whole generation and a whole influx of very prominent female artists, and it's exciting to me to see the potential of emerging female artists, because once they peak in their career or they move forward in their career, what's the impact they're going to make? And this is just sort of a beginning moment for them, to submit to this project, to see if they can make it into the book. And so I'm very excited for that. And I know for myself that some of the things that I would look for is sort of what John touched upon, is, does it have an impact emotionally? Is it really saying something? Is it about something? Combined with, yes, the elements of art, and it needs to be, is it beautiful? Is it inspiring? Is it uplifting? Is it hopeful? To me, that's leadership, and we need female leaders that aren't negative or bitter or dark, but speaking to possibility, speaking to the age to come. And I think that that is where art breaks through and ekes out a future for people. And so I'm very excited to see what these women will paint, and to be a part of a curation process where we basically design the book and the type of artwork that will be in this book. And I would say, as an emerging artist, should you apply? Should you try? Should you submit? Absolutely, yes, yes, for 100 times, because even if you don't get it, even if you aren't selected, going through the experience and the process of submitting your artwork and filling out the form, choosing your artwork, taking a photo of it, choosing a title for it, writing your description, going through that process, making the investment. I can't remember. I think it's 35 euro or something like that. So making the investment. Okay, maybe you don't get it and you're out 35 euro, but you're not. You gained so much. That 35 euro earned you an experience where you tried, and you invested in yourself, and you invested in the possibility, and it's a commitment. It's a step of commitment towards, I want to be a professional artist. I want to make an impact on this world with my art. And every seed you sow towards that goal, or towards that intent, it does bring harvest. It does bring something in the future, even if you don't win, even if you don't get into the book. So I don't want people to overlook that. I can't tell you how many things I have submitted for and I didn't get in. And but I never felt like I wasted my money or I wasted my time, because I knew eventually, though, I will get in those things.
I love that. But also something that we've not shared yet, and I want to say share it on the podcast, is Ellie has very kindly agreed to give feedbacks to artists who do not get in. So we'll figure out a way on how these feedbacks happen. But if you're someone who is submitting to the call and if you don't get in, a lot of times, with it's really a lot to ask to curators, but we understand, getting feedback for every artwork is not as easy, but it's been an incredibly wonderful, I think it's also an equally important and wonderful way to give back to the artist who've submitted, to know, okay, how could they do better? What is it the presentation that they missed? Is it the, sometimes artists don't, it's sometimes don't support the artwork enough with the information. Sometimes it's not photographed well. Sometimes it's missing something, just, or it's just because we only had so much space. Sometimes, just knowing why and where you can work upon, and it coming from a credible source, really helps you move forward. And I feel like this is a great chance to get your work reviewed as well. And if you get in the book, you're all, of course, with Ellie, Dimitra, and in the book. And I'm really excited because I truly feel, when I thought about this opportunity, we have been on this mission that we want to bring more women focused art, more women artists together. And it's so strange when I thought, okay, let's think about artworks just made by women. And even today, a lot of art people will say, oh, why not open to all, and why not? And there's no grudge in nothing, but I felt like, the idea of having 100 artworks together, 100 upcoming works, and I'm sure 5 years later, probably a lot more than some artists are on top of their careers and they're doing some incredible work, and we'll be proud to share, okay, these 100 artworks really, spoke to us, really caught our eye and deserve more attention and deserves more eyes, and we want the world to see it. And I feel like having 100 artworks in a book really makes it a really collectible item in itself as well. So yeah, I think it's a great um, great way to have a feedback on your work. And if you do make it, I think it'll be an incredible resource and credibility to your own work.
Charuka, are you going to make more books after this one?
Oh, my our job is to make books. We make books all year round. We have I love making books, and I think this is something that I truly felt. Even someone I couldn't buy original art, and I couldn't sell original art, let's say. And I figured books was such an amazing, amazing tool. Even today, I buy magazines, I buy books just because they feel beautiful. And it's like if I can't buy, it's like buying 100 paintings in one place and not storing them on the wall. And they're incredibly inspiring.
I just meant the same subject. I didn't mean like, I realize you make books. If it sketches on one each year, or maybe.
Yeah. It's an edition. So with every book that we do, so this is the first edition that we're doing with you, and with every edition, we so the with we're launching 100 artworks every year. We're looking out for 100 best artworks made by women in the arts every year. So this is our first call. We're calling out 100 artworks, and we are doing this together. We have a huge responsibility on us, and I hope that we do a good job.
Yes, it's a huge response.
I'm excited.
I will link every, about the mastery program, about the submission links, about Milan Art Institute. We have a few more features coming up. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me. You can reach out to our team on Arts to Arts. And we hope you like this episode. And if you have any questions about the program as well, make sure you reach out to Milan Art Institute, or you can reach out to us and we can connect you. Any parting words we have?
I wanted to say one last thing to you. I think it's not an accident that being a woman from India, with its own challenges that women face there, that you're putting this book together, and I think that that carries a tremendous amount of authority and power. It's different if somebody that maybe didn't have those cultural challenges, put together a project like this. But the fact that you did, because it's the overcomers and the ones who overcome in the face of these obstacles and these difficulties, that carry tremendous strength, power, and authority. And so I think that it's possible. It's very possible that this project, could actually change the world, and could actually have repercussions that we see into the generations, that when you look back, it'll make history. So you should be very proud of yourself. And I think that there's something very special happening in India right now, for sure, particularly with the women. And I think you are a huge part of that. And so yeah, your listeners are blessed to have you, for sure.
Thank you so much. And I'm glad we met. I think, Ellie, ever since we've spoken, I think you've been nothing but very, very inspiring. And to be doing this together, to have you all on board, I think the best part about being artists is also co-creating with other people. I know you as a family do a lot of collaborations. And I feel like in my own career, I think one of the best experiences is when I work with other artists, other creatives, and we create something magical, even if it's not big or small. It's just the process of creating something together that's so thrilling, that's so inspiring. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Ellie, Dimitri, and John. I appreciate you joining us, and I'll see you when we curate the book next.
All right, thank you.